Behold, the hubris! Have I gone too far? Am I mad? I definitely didn't do it right, but I'm attempting to stream on 2 different platforms at once. Today is January 10th, 2025. We continue our quest to get all of our neurons to fire together so they can wire together, which means intentional practice. And I guess what I need to do is get a sense of, okay, great. And the award goes to Dylan Tews. Today we're doing something ambitious. We're going live on 2 different platforms. As a matter of fact, I see G. James B is already on Twitch. This is great. For those of you guys who are new around here, this is Friday, and Friday afternoons are when we do the Weird Things podcast, where we talk about the strange, the supernatural, the bleeding edge, where science and fantasy meet. Although for the last year and change, it's really just been cutting edge talk about AI. It's been really, really fantastic. I'm so sorry. I had a like a hard candy throat lozenge thing right before I went live. Shouldn't have done that. I'm also continuing my quest. This time I'm going to put it right at the very beginning so that I can find this out later, to figure out exactly which stream I can play in the background and not get content ID'd all to heck. So, I thought it was the same one because it's the same cartoon character, but she was studying in the previous one. It said study with, whatever. All of that got content ID'd. The only one that hasn't been taken down is the lo-fi hip-hop radio. So I'll keep you posted on whether or not... Hey, Lady Max 70, congratulations. It's good to see you. I don't know, if, by any chance, Lady Max 70, did you happen to see the archived previous live streams? Because what I'm hoping to do is sort of document day by day. Each day I learn a new skill as we eventually go, as my friend Justin Robert Young puts it, full cerebro. I'm becoming a cyborg. I'm going to become so fast at content turnaround by plugging myself in, turning myself over to the process of learning every single aspect of production so that an idea for an episode can be turned around in mere minutes, and you guys get to come along for the ride. I'll be sharing every single part of the journey. But some of the advancements that we made, the big advancement we're making today is the fact that I'm live on both Twitch and on YouTube at the same time. The Twitch channel is twitch.tv/nightattack, NIGHTATTACK. And what we're trying on for size, oh, wrong way, is this guy right here, the teleprompter. That's the Twitch chat. G. James B already said, yo, hello. And the current thinking is, what if the Rogues Gallery is able to talk amongst themselves at all times in the YouTube audience, in that chat. But then meanwhile, here, I'm gonna have to hit pause on this. There we go. Mute this. Excellent. And then while that is happening, anybody who wants to talk to me directly can plug straight into my brain by interrupting my train of thought by talking over here. Unsafe DB level says, eventually you'll have a conversation with ChatGPT and a video will spit out. You know what? Eventually, unsafe DB level, I won't even have a conversation. I'll just think a thought and a video will appear. Hey, Gaming Aspect, good to see you. So that's the status of things. And again, for you guys just showing up, we'll get to watch as we configure the Weird Things. That video setup is a little bit different. For that one, we do just a Google Hangout, and it pretty obviously has historically been just a screen capture of the 3 of us on there. But as I give everything a spit polish on here, we get to set up something closer to this. Everything's going to get more refined over time. But somebody give me some good news. California's on fire, like we talked about. That was crazy. Let's see. We got Lady Mac is new here. Why does medicine have to taste like shit? I wonder if there's maybe a heuristic to that. There have been studies that shown that when it comes to, we know that the placebo effect is a very real thing. We know that red placebos work better than blue placebos. We know that big placebos work better than small placebos. We know that expensive placebos work better than cheap ones. And as a matter of fact, who's to say, here's my theory when it comes to something like, for example, let's say acupuncture. I'm going to guess that our bodies are not filled with air, pneumatic tubes, which was the original thesis of acupuncture. I'm going to guess that we're not relieving pressure out of there. But I would speculate that if you were to call acupuncture a placebo, we know that placebos are very effective for pain management. It's like a weapons grade option when it comes to, if whatever placebo effect there is has to be enhanced by the fact that it's a inherently painful process on there. Oh, good. My mom is in the chat. Everyone say hi to my mom. I've been going live for the last week, and it all started on Sunday when my dad came out. You can go back and see the very first episode, the invasion of the stage flats. And my dad and Nathan and I moved over the stuff behind me. That's all going up. But I know that Mom is my #1 fan and patron, and I had been meaning to tell Mom, oh, now that I'm going live almost every single day, you should really just turn it on. In fact, Mom, if you can, take a picture of the setup, because I'm hoping you're watching on the big screen. That would be fun. The idea that among other people, I'm hanging out at my mom's place every day. Unsafe DB Level speculates that when it comes to the placebo effect, the more side effects they warn you about, the better the placebo. Yes, that is also true, because there's a buy-in for it. There's something about that, the electricity of crossing over the threshold of taking action that affects your behavior, affects your posture, affects the way you think and talk about stuff. I do like the fact that everybody's going on best behavior now that Mom is here. Also, Two Dorks points out correctly that if medicine tastes too good, we might be more inclined to abuse it. We kind of have that problem when is it scissor? Is that what it is? I don't know. But, okay, good. I'm all caught up on the texts and the chats. So let's go ahead and kind of get started on setting up this shot. Oh, another thing that I'm trying to be really good about is making sure to let you guys know if anything happens while you were out. Here's what happened while you were out. You see we got the 2-foot LED on the left and on the right, the red and the blue there. You can see some purple light in the middle. I bought 2 more of these tubes, but one of them seems to just flicker and go nutty all over the place. And it seems linked to this other one. I don't know if it's receiving signals from the outside. I think I may have to return it and swap it out. We could play. Oh, this is wonderful. Rinko has been here over the last week, and Rinko just walked in and said, holy guacamole, this changed quickly. That's excellent. I'm very glad to hear that it's had an effect. Oh, and I also have news reports from the front lines. So right now, you guys know we've been setting everything up with 4 OBS bot cameras. We got our bots. But I was thinking to myself, man, do I love these bots? Do I love what a difference the light has made with everything? I love everything about it. The only thing I don't love is I wish, when you zoom all the way in, here we'll zoom all the way in. The farther in you zoom, because it's a digital zoom, you get a little bit of artifacting. And it kind of tells on you the fact that these aren't high-quality DSLRs using HDMI. And I was thinking, I don't know, just a day or two ago, man, I love this solution. I love the motorized gimbals. I love the fact that I can, have it follow me as I go from side to side and all that stuff. But I just wish that I could have all of that and superior quality, optical zoom in addition to digital zoom. And guess what happened at CES? Anybody have a guess? It's not that hard to guess. Let me go ahead and open up the actual release. If you go to obsbot.com, I believe it's right there on the front page. Let's see. Yep. At CES, they announced the Tail 2, which looks fantastic. It's got a bunch of big numbers. You know what? Well, I can't pre-order it now. But these OBS bot cameras that I'm using right now, pretty good. Get out of here. I don't want this. I want your new stuff. Go back. Wait. Did they just announce a new product right now? No. No, stop. Stop with your slideshows. I want your press release. Okay. Yeah, so the new hotness is going to be $1,000 a pop. That's interesting. I happened to open this yesterday, and it definitely had a retail of like more than $1,200, and so it said 25% off. But I'm guessing that they are adjusting to demand after their press release. I also saw that they had a, and I'm cheering for this company. I really like their product so far. It's been extraordinary. So keep in mind, I say this with all love and affection, but they definitely did an AMA all day on Reddit, and it closed, like, by the time I found it, it was only 18 hours old. It came and went, and there was only one question that they answered. And so it's like, whoops, marketing team had a bit of trouble on that one. But here's what I realized. These guys, I was able to nab 4 of them for $249 a piece. So for $1,000, we get, this, which is going to be good enough for any kind of talking head video, for any kind of podcasting, for all of the live streaming and stuff. But my hopes are that this Tail 2, this other guy, is like some next level sauce, and that it can replace all of these, because these guys can go HDMI, and if the image quality, to be honest, they don't have to be much better than this in order to get us across the threshold, and then that gets us to that faster production pipeline. Matt Hawley's asking, no weird things? No, yes, weird things. That's why I went live early, is so that we could all set up the shots together. And in fact, let me see if anybody has posted anything. Oh, great, we got people ready. Here, I'll give a thumbs up. And then I'm gonna pause this music. If you guys are new to it, we're doing a program called the Weird Things Podcast. It is exactly what it sounds like. So I am going to log in, and there's hopefully this works. Let's see. Join this. Join this. Gentlemen, we are live. Oh, are you guys there? Oh, I got you muted. Let me try that again. How about now?
We hear you.
How about now? There we go. So I'm going to set this up. Since I'm building a new shot for this, at first, we'll just do this. And then let me add a new input. And
are we live everywhere?
We are live.
Yeah, we are live.
Cool. I have a hard out at FU o'clock.
Okay, so
I'm good for a couple hours. I wanted to say that. Just wanted to use that joke.
Okay. I'm getting a little bit of clipping on my end. I don't know what I'm doing to cause that, but first let me go ahead and set up this this new input. Actually, you know what? I'll just keep it dead simple for now. I'll just
I think you should keep it dead simple.
What's that?
I think you should keep it dead simple.
I
No,
agree.
he should keep it dead simple, guys.
I think what we need to do is focus on keeping it dead simple.
Or maybe dead simple.
Dead simple though. We could make it
Right.
dead simple. Yeah.
Let's just split the difference and call it dead simple.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if we circle back, we can always just go dead simple.
Yeah. All right. So I'm even fatigued to this now.
It's my superpower.
All right.
We had my nephew and niece over. They're 5 and 8, and I would just, they have the ability as children to just never let go of a dumb bit and just continue the dumb. So like, I got the 5-year-old on the say what chicken butt bit, and he just like would not stop, right? Just over and over and over. Guess what? Chicken butt. Guess what? Chicken butt. And the parents are like, you can tell him to stop. He will stop if you tell him to stop. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I want to try and break the 5-year-old.
They're not trapped in here with her. I'm not trapped in here with them. Let me
It's funny. It's a great line, and it's interesting. I've seen it show up when people try to use it in other movies to try to like just.
What? Guess what? Chicken butt.
No, the I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, guess what, Chico? That was Al Franken.
Wait, he made that up?
It was Al Franken and Macaulay Culkin when he was doing like the Stuart Smiley thing.
Really?
He was like his nephew or whatever. Remember?
Yeah, I don't think I did
Watchmen?
see that.
No, we're back to your chicken butt thing.
Oh, chicken butt. Oh, really?
Remember, it was like Macaulay, like Al Franken would do the Stuart Smile or the whatever. I feel good, and like Macaulay Culkin played his nephew, whatever. He's like, guess what?
I didn't know. Yeah, the origins of chicken butt.
I don't know if that's the origin, but I can remember that was
A popular use of chicken butt. Joining us back here, we will explore the popular use of chicken butt.
All right, I'm almost there, gents.
That's fine. I'm building a fake plant. So we're all working on things. Yeah, I'm busy too.
We all have legitimate jobs. Not floating baloney in any way.
I deserve good things. I am entitled to my share of happiness. I refuse to beat myself up. I am an attractive person. I am fun to be with.
Daily Affirmation with Stuart Smalley.
Oh, that's definitely Phil
Smalley is
Hartman.
a caring nurturer, a member of several 12-step programs, but not a licensed therapist.
I'm going to do a great show today, and I'm going to help people because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Hello, I'm Stuart Smalley. As you know, I normally don't have guests on my show, and that's okay. But today, I have a very special guest, my nephew, Kyle. Kyle S. will maintain your anonymity, Kyle. And Kyle's father is an alcoholic, and he abandoned Kyle and his mother when Kyle was 3. And is that your fault, Kyle?
No, Uncle Stuart.
No, it isn't. And Kyle's mother is in a rehab right now because she eats too much. And why does she eat too much, Kyle?
She has a disease.
Yes, she does, and that's okay. And is that your fault, Kyle?
No, Uncle Stuart.
No, it isn't. It isn't your fault.
Hey, Andrew, I don't know that I could be
the hospital's
just
gonna
live
make Mommy
streaming
all better and teach her
SNL
not to eat
content.
so much.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Okay, I'm sorry. Kyle?
What a moment in time. Brian calling for no
I know.
copyrighted material.
Well, when it was
I love it.
we could be freewheeling.
I'm just saying it's a moment in time. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Let me just.
Point is, that's where he does the guess what chicken butt thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm trying to avoid being too finicky on this, and I think I almost have it. Where's my pan?
My picture from you is definitely like 3 frames a second.
Oh, so we do have that going on. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Because the outgoing stream, let me double check it. That might be an internal Google thing then, which is another clue.
They're all
So
games.
let me try killing. Yeah, let me try killing this this page and see if that does anything. And then going back. Well, you know what? Well, first of all, how does that look? Does that look any better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
World's better.
so check this out. The moment I started it, it did a weird zoom in thing where
Yes.
it zoomed in like I'm in the quad shot, but you can't tell.
Yeah. No, so what you have to do is go give yourself a fake background and then take the fake background away, and
Oh,
then it'll
crap.
stop auto cropping you.
All right, well, here, let's can you walk me through that? Where's a fake background?
It should be on the right side or in options. If you can just probably bring up options, then apply visual effects.
Okay, and then
Give yourself a background.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
click on Christmas
generate
tree
a
thing.
background, great samples.
You mean you can
steampunk-
just click on literally any of them that were like pre-populated.
Okay. It's making me generate it. Also, I think the only extension I have on there is an ad blocker. But I want you to turn it on. I created a background. I guess I've selected one.
Did it give it to you?
I don't know. Yes, there
Yeah,
you guys are.
It did. Now take it away.
Okay, so now, boy, this is this kind of leads into one of our topics, I'm sure, is, have you guys noticed that? Oh, this is the wrong kind of settings. Wait, or is it?
Yeah, I have no idea how to disable auto zoom on Google Meet.
Just remove myself. How's that? But now this is how I appear.
Yeah, we cannot see, but we're fading in and out of the background, and it is zooming between the two of us.
Okay, there we go. I believe it's gotten rid of it, and I believe it should be the 3-shot of us.
Yeah, it looks like it. I cannot see all of. Yeah, now I can see. Yeah, I can't
Okay.
see the whole thing.
So, and then in this case,
But I believe you.
I have to put my tile back, showing a tile. All right. Does this work for us?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
works for me.
Cool. Well, then we will be recording in 3, 2. Oh, sorry. That was me counting you in. Here, I'll do it again.
Sorry.
All right. Recording. Weird
Wait.
things.
Hold on. Please, Brian, don't hurt him. Let me switch my microphone here to my good mic. Okay. Now I'm ready.
All right. Recording weird things in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things podcast. I'm Ader Mean, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello.
And Mr. Justin Robert Young.
Yeah, buddy.
Happy 2015, everybody. It's 2015.
Yep.
We're 15 years into. Oh, wait. Oh,
I can't
got a
believe
note here.
can't believe it's been 14 years since 9/11.
Oh my God. 2025, everybody. Oh, Jesus.
We
were this century's a quarter done.
Oh my God.
We mentioned on the Great Night Bonus podcast that I was watching Cowboy Bebop, and in the background on a hollowed out asteroid in space was an old cantina, and you know it was old in the future because it was established way back in 2025.
Yep. Blade Runner's like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
How far into the future?
A lot. I'll tell you what, it explains a lot if Blade Runner was 8 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, in Scott intentionally they adjusted the timeline to kind of make it feel like near, but still in 1982 they're still going like, well, not really. But congratulations everybody. We made it 2025.
We did it.
Hell yeah. We did it. We did it, everybody. Did everybody have a good holiday season?
Did. I wonder if the abundance of mental health information on the internet has made possible, like there's just different language that families are able to use that wasn't easily available when I was a kid, and everybody being able to know their role and to support. It was one of the happiest Christmases in a minute. It was really great.
Awesome. I did Universal Studios with my wife. Our anniversary is the 30th, and so we spent time with my parents and my brother and my sister-in-law and my nieces. And then we did Universal, which was cool. We had a great experience. All right, Universal tip for everybody.
Here we go.
If you go there, particularly in Orlando, I don't know what the story is of this. I don't know if it's in LA. I could just look this up, but I won't. I've walked past it a couple times. So I'm like, the Bourne Stuntacular, right? You're like, oh, I need to see a stunt show where they do the old timey. Here's the sound effect and the Wilhelm scream and whatever I had expecting in there. Not it. It's the original, like the T3 theater, which used to be like the Conan theater in LA. But like anyhow, they do a stunt show, but the way it's done is it's not they're stopping explaining the stunts, is they do like a mini Jason Bourne movie, and they have this digital projection that is the highest quality projection system I've ever seen. It's got to be like a bunch of 4K screens. It is massive. And at first you walk in, you feel like it looks like a concrete wall. Looks like you're looking at a concrete wall. That's the screen. And then the actors play out in front of it, but they have set extensions that come out where like, at some point the whole scene moves. The digital, you're looking at like Morocco or whatever, and you're like, oh, where is this? You're looking at someplace. Can hold on one second.
I'll tell you what, but everybody's going to be going to Universal probably in the coming year. Do you know why, Brian?
Did they announce some property or something?
It's opening this year. A brand new like 5-world expansion to Universal.
Oh, this is Universal Orlando, right?
Orlando.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's Nintendo World. Well, what's in Epic Universe, man? I know it's
Epic
Nintendo World.
Universe
How to
is gonna
Train Your
have
Dragon.
yeah, Nintendo had How to Train Your Dragon, Dark Universe, which looks super cool. There's a number of sections to it, but I'll just finish up the Bourne thing. Sorry, I had a call on my phone that I thought was silenced here. Is they have these set extensions come out, and like at one point, like they opens up where it's like in this fight in like Morocco or something like this, and there's a crowd of people watching the fight. Some of them are digital projections. Some of them are real people. You cannot tell unless you look really closely. Like they do this blending, and then he like goes running, and then the whole scene moves. He's like walking and talking. Scene moves, and they have like top of a building that's in front of the screen, so it just blends in. And they do an action sequence there. They do car chases with cars on like robotic gimbals and stuff in front of the screen. You watch things move. There's a great moment where he's on a motorcycle racing. He jumps up, grabs the street light. So real actor doing the stunt. And he does this, they do a slow motion thing, and he does like a slow motion pull up, like pull up, move over onto it. And you're like, cool. And like, wait, I just watched the guy physically do that stunt in real time.
Well,
So,
and I bet it's much like a good magic trick, this constant negotiation with your brain to establish what is concrete and real and what is suspension of disbelief. And then that's something that Teller would always talk about, is like good magic wrenches permission out of suspension of disbelief. Like if you're on stage, you grab a stick and say, this is a sword. You're like, okay, I'll buy it. This is, air quotes, a sword. Whereas in magic, it's like, this is a sword. And then you blink, and you're like, holy moly, it is a sword. What just happened?
yeah, I want to see it again. So I'm not looking for, I'd want to see it multiple times, because the first time my brain can't help but kind of look, because like I'm watching the actors, like, oh, I want to appreciate how this was done. So,
Oh, that's so funny, because I do the reverse. The first time when I go, I totally give myself over to the narrative, and I try to let myself get fooled.
Brian, yes, and you do that with magic show and movies. When you go do this, you're not going to be able to help, because it's so different. It's such a different thing that normally I do. I just want to immerse it. But because it was like I'm like, holy shit, this is a new paradigm. Like I couldn't, because like I'm with the same way with you. Like I want to just not be the magician trying to figure it out. I want to be the audience. But
How new is this particular show?
I don't know. Oh, let me go look. And I want to say something too, is that like between the Bourne Stuntacular, where you're trying to avoid the CIA, and the Fast and the Furious, where you're trying to escape the FBI raid, there is a sort of interesting vibe there.
Yeah, counterculture, Universal Studios.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a federal agency. No, I mean, I guess with Transformers, you're escaping the Department of Defense. There really is, like, an undercurrent, an anti-authority undercurrent to all of these things.
I guess it's maybe 2 years old.
Also, if you believe the narrative of every theme park ride,
at least four, yeah. 4
well, I mean, still, that's a blip in terms of, they build those shows
in 2010
to
That's
run.
Crazy.
Yeah. If you believe the narrative of each one of the theme park rides, I just love that every theme park ride is like, oh no, something's gone terribly wrong. It's like, I have this picture of a credulous review that is like, every single ride I went on, they can't do anything right. There was one where Megatron kicked the door in and screwed everything up. There was another one where Terminators showed up.
Yeah, this was 2020. Yeah, they didn't have this tech in 2010. This was 2020 when this got put in.
I was joking about your joke at the beginning of the podcast.
I know you were, but I want to clarify, because I got it. But
Okay.
Okay. Too smart. So the parks, back to Epic Universe, they're going to have Super Nintendo World, the How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk, Dark Universe, which is the horror monster theme thing, Wizarding World, which is going to be cool. It's the Ministry of Magic, and then Celestial Park.
Ooh,
Celestial Park. Do we know what that one is?
Probably well, I don't know, Celestial. Well, remember when? So this is probably the closest to Islands of Adventure, which opened back in the 90s, and that at Open had Dr. Seuss World, a kind of very not branded like Adventureland, like Land of Adventure, Jurassic Park, then I think it was like King Features. So it was like old comics, like the funny
Yeah,
pages,
that's right. Yeah, like a Popeye and whatnot.
Popeye and stuff like that. And
And
then
then of course Marvel,
Marvel.
superhero, which
Yeah.
was fascinating because when I was working Halloween Horror Nights, that's when I would gently ask like, so seems like Marvel owns a lot of. They just bought Marvel or Disney bought Marvel, and they're like, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be complicated. You know, it's like these are the comic book character rights. And this was also just as Marvel was kicking on the main scene, and they were allowed to make a Spider Man character who just had a really cool, from the comic books, Spider Man outfit. And they were internally well pleased that it happened to look like the Sony owned property Spider Man movie suit on there.
That land is still awesome. The Spider-Man ride at Universal is still like it has held up on a level that I don't think anybody was probably really expecting, considering it was like bleeding edge tech at the time. But a lot of the rides, including Universal's own like Harry Potter rides, are really kind of just more expensive versions of Spider-Man, and I don't think that they've ever really gotten them better. I think that Spider-Man's probably still, for my money, my favorite version of it. Now, granted, I also went on it a billion times when I was like 16, so there is a strong nostalgia pull for Spider-Man. But there are little things, both with the way that they direct the action, they direct your focus, the physical effects, like when they hit, that are great. And I've never really thought that way about either of the other Harry Potter rides.
Yeah, Jess and I talked about this before, that there was an article in Wired magazine in the 90s that came out about the Spider-Man ride when it launched, and it was like all cutting edge then. It was all like it was doomed to fail, but it did not. It succeeded, like literally one of the best cases of a tech thing that pulled off. And you hear like later on, like the Hagrid ride has issues, and a lot of the run times for some of these things go like, because technically, and I can't think of a ride that technically was as big of a leap until, and I would say that like the Bourne Stuntacular though was the first time I felt like I watched, like I said, the background projection was as seamless as I could hope for it, other than if you figured out how to do some holographic depth stuff. They do some other kind of stuff, rides on sound, like the King Kong thing is kind of cool, you know, but you can see the edge of the soundstage and stuff. I do think that really, really good video systems are going to open up really cool things. Done right, but yeah, the Harry Potter.
Yeah, but that's always been the problem with the Harry Potter rides, right? Because they had that kind of tech. I don't think that they was where they wanted it to be, and they were way too ambitious with it.
What I mean is like, you might be able to do a thing where every surface is video, and you actually legit like move through there, but you could go through the same space over and over again, rather than keep you in a static space and move you like. I have to close my eyes during the Harry Potter ride because I get extremely nauseous. The Simpsons ride, the former Back to the Future. I remember I did a VIP tour, and they're going to do the Simpsons ride, and they're like, you're like, oh, you want to do this? I said, oh, I'm prone to nausea. Like, oh, we have a person here who's prone to nausea. He's done this. He's fine. I get on the ride. I come out. I'm ready to heave. I'm like, you got to fire that dude, because like I am, I have an entire TV special about how easily I throw up. And I swim with sharks.
I'm pumped though. I think Universal's in a prime position because Disney has kind of fumbled the proverbial bag as far as their lead, because really, like in the 90s, Universal had the best park in Orlando. Disney had stagnated for really the decade prior.
Particularly if you're a teen, is that what you said?
Yeah, if you're a teen,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, Disney was coming out of a really down point in the 90s, right? Like the MGM had kind of floundered.
Also Disney TV, I guess this was I'm gonna mix up my timelines. Defunct Land, Come Save Us. Late 90s was definitely like, I remember people talking about as Islands of Adventure came out who are hardcore Disney fans, and they were like bummed the way college football fans are bummed when their team loses a big game and they console each other
Yeah.
like, no, don't worry, we'll get them next year. We got a good thing coming in the pipeline. It's going to be great, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and Disney did a lot to kind of regain that. Animal Kingdom was huge. It was really, really well done. They had good rides that came out of it. But since then, a lot of their last few things have been not great. I mean, like I know Brian, you had an amazing experience on Rise of the Resistance, but as that ride gets older in the tooth and you start to go from the best person who ever did the Jungle Cruise to the 50,000th person who's doing an impression of that guy 5 years later, 7 years later, I think that doesn't age quite in the same way.
Well, and I think you correctly are pointing out that there was something about my experience that was inextricably tied to the
talent,
the vibe, the excitement of how new it was, and everybody leaning in and giving themselves over to the fantasy of this adventure. And like, it's not even a matter of their performance, because let's say they were all animatronic robots and they're perfect. As we've talked about on this program, I am of the opinion that as AI just gets better and better at mimicking people, we're going to value actual humans even more and more. And
Yeah.
the one thing you can't fake is that, by God, we're all in this room, and this is an incredible spell we're casting on ourselves.
Go ahead.
Brian, I sent a link to you, which is they have a kind of a cool tour of the Disney Ministry of Magic Park where you click through.
Yeah, sure thing. Let me go ahead and get logged in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that my problem with Star Wars Land, Galaxy's Edge writ large is that I think it's kind of a failure from the planning stages in terms of what it could be, right? Like, not to say that it's not a fan favorite, because Star Wars is extraordinarily popular. They built a gigantic Millennium Falcon that you can take your picture in front of. That's always going to be popular. But I don't think that the Millennium Falcon ride is anywhere near as good as what it should be. I think Rise of the Resistance is this weird, neither fish nor fowl version of an immersive theater experience and a theme park ride. And they never really were able to figure out, obviously, with their Galaxy Cruiser thing. They had a desire to do immersive theater. They have never really been able to do it. And then they have, the theme parks, the theme park elements of it. But now, you're going to see Universal kind of get, like, for the first time since they've had in the 90s, a real crack at being the toast of the town, which is going to be interesting.
I was a very big Star Wars fan. I've got you guys to come with me to Star Wars Celebration.
Yep.
Very much a fan. And obviously, some argument made that I aged out of it to an extent, but never been to Galaxy's Edge. The moment when I first heard, I was over the moon. We first did Star Wars, they announced it. And then every announcement about it after the fact made me less and less interested. By the time that it opened, I didn't care. I just didn't care, because meanwhile, Harry Potter, I'm a fan. The Harry Potter world was amazing. You go to, my wife, who's not a fan of the books or the movies necessarily, we went into the little passageway to get into Diagon Alley.
Yeah.
And her spirits, she just started smiling. She just felt fun. I'm like, this is cool. Nobody walks into Galaxy's Edge and sees the same red rock that you see at Cars Land.
Yeah.
And what looks like a swap meet on a desert planet that you don't recognize or know, but just has the generic, like there is a generic look to hotels and airports that has the most generic Star Wars thing and gets excited. It's not like you walked in there and you looked up in the sky and saw Cloud City and said, holy cow, I can't wait to go up there to Cloud City. It's not like you heard the sound of a Dagobah swamp and are like, oh my God, I want to explore this. Or you did I think you could do like a Coruscant museum tour where you just walk through exhibits that recreate scene, remember the whole now is the time kind of thing, like the what if Coruscant, Ministry of, post Star Wars, whatever, had here's how we got to here. You could do an amazing nostalgia thing that would have just blown people away. and they won. They're like, well, we're gonna create new memories because a big corporation's really good at creating awesome
Yes.
new nostalgia. And so yeah, that was the thing. I'm looking at this tour. Brian's going through the tours. This is the Ministry of Magic. This is the new Wizarding World Tour at Epic Universe, and you're looking like, oh, this is the European. Well, it's all Europe. Like this is like, I guess, like going through the parks there, and like this is an exciting new place to explore.
Well, and so I guess that rounds out their trinity of, you get Hogwarts, you get Diagon Alley, and then forgive me, what was the name of this part again?
Ministry of
Ministry
Magic.
Ministry of Magic. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got
I
it.
think this is the French. This is like the French.
Yeah.
Go to the why not I think the big sleeper hit is going to be Dark Universe. Go do the tour of that.
Okay. So, by the way, we just went to universalorlando.com and they got this way to explore things. I don't know how to back up this. This
No,
URL.
go down. If you scroll down, you'll see like tour other parks.
Ah, got it. There we go. Epic Universe. Let's see.
I can send you the link too, just in case.
Yeah, I might be able to find it. Scrolling on down, Wizarding Paris, and there we
Link is
go.
sent, by the way. All right.
Say again.
I sent you the link too.
Oh, great. All right. Well, here I'll jump it over to the 3-shot while I dig that up.
Yeah, so Dark Universe was Universal decided, they have all these classic movie monsters, and they said, let's create our own park. And by the way, the way Epic Universe is laid out, there's one center gateway that you can go to all the different parks from. So it's kind of like, it's a, like.
So are they making, because that was the thing, is that it's kind of far off campus from the other stuff. But I guess as far as the customer journey, you go in through this place and it's a hub, and I imagine there's some magical conveyances once you're on the inside that take you to the different parks.
Well, like within Epic Universe or the other parks?
To get to the other parks, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But
Yeah,
like
I think it's going to be like
divided up.
a bus thing to get to the other parks.
The most
magical.
epic of conveyances, a bus.
Yeah.
So
So one
we're
of
looking at the Dark Universe. This was supposed to be kind of their answer to the MCU with your Frankensteins and Wolfsmen and mummies.
Well, that has
and
nothing to do with that IP. Nothing to do with that IP at all.
Oh, really?
So
I mean, it has to do with the original.
Yeah,
It's not their new Dark Universe. This is. I mean,
Yeah,
they use the name, but it's.
Okay.
But this is taking the classic monsters that Universal has always been very, very proud of and doing new original rides based on those properties. But they look awesome. There's like a great new Frankenstein one, a great Wolfsman one.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it just looks like a very, very amazingly themed place, and
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
I'll
to it.
tell you what. We tend to be I don't know, pragmatic folks, the three of us, but danged if we don't also recognize that humans are narrative-driven creatures, and the fact that like so many people pay so much money and move their bodies in order to all be in the same place and engage in play pretend for stories is just so extraordinary. Like to the tune that the corporation has to tell shareholders, don't worry, enough humans are going to come here and play pretend. I guess Brian says, as the three of us continue our phony baloney jobs by telling stories on the internet.
But
Well-
Brian, you just passed it, but that's like apparently the big centerpiece for the Dark Universe thing is their gigantic, constantly on fire windmill.
Oh, so you know what? I was not thinking in terms of practical effects. To me, that was just one cool. It is a constantly on fire windmill.
Yeah, no, so that's just gonna be a thing. Is that windmill is just gonna be on fire all day?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, we do all these things remotely. We should consider maybe every now and then doing something in the same space.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? You got anything next week, Brian?
Oh my
Yeah, Brian, how's
goodness.
next Friday look for you for us to do like?
All right. The
monthly?
pieces are coming together. You know what? I'm not making any plans for next Friday, my birthday.
Well, then what do you say we I was trying to think of this. Have we ever done? I guess you want to know what? For Star Wars Celebration, we were all in the same room.
Yeah, and we
Right.
recorded our thoughts immediately. Oh, sweet summer children, we were so very excited for.
But other than that, I don't know if I can remember a time where we've all been in the same room doing weird things.
Not the
Well,
Weird Things
I mean,
podcast. Yeah.
the podcast.
Well, anyway, that's going to happen live on the internet next week.
Yeah, and you know what? We're so dedicated to it that Brian's not going to watch Severance on his birthday, season 2.
No, we appreciate that. I'm looking at
why,
how
why?
far-
I mean, do you have to? Are you like trying to atone?
No, I just I think it was funny a couple days ago when you asked Justin like if I had any plans or don't make any plans. I was like for months ever since they announced the premiere of season 2, I was like, that's my birthday, and so I made a joke that that's what January 17th is going to be all about.
Yeah. Well, you're still allowed to do it.
Okay.
You don't. Yeah. There's no quid pro quo here. You can wake up and watch Severance as soon as you wake up.
I'm looking at how far away Epic Universe is from the other Universal parks.
It's pretty far.
Yeah, you've got like neighborhoods and plazas and all sorts of stuff in between there.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up on Google Maps.
Yeah, for folks who are not familiar with Orlando's geography, one of the things that obviously Disney, you can listen to the origin of this on World's Greatest Con, was very prescient of is buying a gigantic swath of land in the adjacent area to Orlando. Universal built kind of in the center of Orlando. So unfortunately, if they want to expand, there's stuff all around it in a way that Disney could probably just keep building one new park a year for, decades and never run out of space that they already own.
Yeah. So, audio listeners, if you we're looking right now at Universal Orlando Resort is practically touching. All of the parks are all practically touching, or actually, yeah, there's a road separating them, and that's it. Which way do I go to navigate to the new
South.
park? South?
Yeah.
Okay, so past the Endless Summer Resort.
Yeah, I mean you're past Sand Lake Road. I mean you're
Yeah.
like you're
So is it north or south from the park?
south. The Epic Universe is south east.
Okay.
You've
Yeah.
got the Lockheed plant. You've only got a Lockheed, defense facility there.
Which is its own immersive experience.
Oh, is this it under construction here? Wow, that is a ways. It's down
Yeah.
south past Universal's food and beverage warehouse.
Yeah, I think that was the land that they used. They used other land that they had used as auxiliary support for the park to build another park.
That's amazing. And it's launching when?
I think May.
This spring. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so in for that.
Yeah, then you go look at like Disney property and you're like, oh yeah, they've just got a ton. They've got all this other land and everything else. They could have.
They are not anywhere close. They could just continually expand like the universe and they would not get close to their boundaries.
Yeah, you look over there and you see tons of land, swampland, and then you're like, oh, there's Animal Kingdom. Like, oh, they're in the middle of nowhere. It's the Reedy Creek Environmental Service, services. Like it's just crazy.
I'll tell you what, I hope that Epic Universe is a massive hit, and I hope that it lights a fire under Disney's ass. I hope that the appropriate people are shaken up, and the next things that they look to do are a little bit sharper.
Yeah, we'll see. 2024. Let's talk about that year for a moment.
Yeah, let's do it.
It was rapid AI. I think 2024 is a year that everybody started going, most everybody like, oh yeah, maybe this AGI thing could happen.
Well, yeah, that was my prediction, right? Was that we would get people announcing AGI in the interregnum between that episode and this one. You had leadership at OpenAI saying that they were already moving their eye line away from AGI and up to ASI, a super intelligent system.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been. We'll see what's going to happen next with the rate. Everything's going to be a jagged frontier. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens with that. A thing that came out since we last talked is NVIDIA, the Consumer Electronics Show. A big area to look into, and I've talked about this before, how systems like Sora and whatever, they're actually like world simulators, which have uses for applications like physics and stuff. And NVIDIA just launched a thing called Cosmos, an open source model you can run locally. And what it does is it lets you simulate a lot of different environments in which a robot would work. And that was like the point I've been trying to explain before was like, these things are really useful. If I want to have a robot system and train it and basically have it understand how to navigate a warehouse or a kitchen. And so they've launched their Cosmos World Frontier models, which are really, really cool. So if you go to, I'll send you this link, Brian, if you don't have it.
Sure.
And you can see the example of the kind of video footage. So it's generative AI. So it means that it's generating it on the fly. And what it's done, what you want to be able to do is if you're trying to train a robot system with vision, trying to run an experiment in the real world is obviously ideal. The problem is if you're trying to iterate and improve it. If it takes you, the problem Boston Dynamics had is that, it takes them 20 minutes to set the robot up on top of the harness and put it in the environment. And then all of a sudden you realize that somebody forgot to oil an ankle mechanism and now you've got to restart. That is a problem with the physical world. This physical world does not move as fast as software because it's hard to do it. The more accurately your software can replicate the physical world, the faster you can iterate on hardware.
Okay,
And,
here we go. So I just got the link. Let me get that open. But we're looking at this is an NVIDIA. NVIDIA, by the way. Okay, so where am I headed on this link?
Just look at the video. Just the video that it's showing.
Uh-huh.
So what we're looking at here, this is just it's a new video model that generates all these different scenarios and situations. So you can basically, it's designed for training robots.
Oh, that's great.
So
you can, so as you are giving it data of what the real world is, it can physically generate that data so it is smarter in the real world.
Yeah, I could go say, hey, create a virtual warehouse for me. Now give the signal, the input back to my AI as I tell my AI model to try to navigate the warehouse, the virtual warehouse. And so I could run thousands of simulations inside of a virtual warehouse, then put the actual robot into the real warehouse to see how well it's able to do that.
Well, and there's a temptation, or I'm not going to say temptation. A few years ago, I would have been worried about like, wait, well, maybe it's just making everything up. But reading Kurzweil's The Singularity is Nearer, he explains like, look, yes, it's synthetic data, but it's based on physics models and basically is creating a gigantic data set of real situations, or at least close enough to real expected situations. And then when it's trained upon that, it will have the heuristic to automatically know how to handle everything from emergency situations to logistics management.
Yeah, because the point is just because people are like, oh, it's not real. It's like, well, I can build my robot and just put it in the real world, or I can build my robot, put it into the virtual world, then the real world.
Yes.
Because if the first time in my virtual world it doesn't know what an ambulance is and it drives right through it, then that's bad.
A example that I got to touch recently was I'm still in this process of doing this series of explaining the kind of counterintuitive aspects of flipping a weighted coin and why, even though it's weighted in your favor, you shouldn't do it. But in order to kind of Monte Carlo prove it, tens of thousands of virtual coin flips, it's all synthetic data that using OpenAI ChatGPT Pro mode, it's like it's got the receipts and it does line up with the expected values of all this, but by virtue of being actual coin flips, you can show it deviating, in one random seed versus another random seed. It's a similar game to that, only like all things being equal, which robot would you like on your production floor? The one who has practiced a lot in a virtual environment, or the one who's his first day on the job?
And that's the promise. The promise here is that a lot of these things are just going to be able to scale up so much faster. Boys, I hate to bail, but there's a fussy baby that I need to go corral right now. But I will say that my pick, speaking of robots, is the new Defunct Land about audio animatronics. If you have not seen it,
I watched just the very beginning of it, and I got so excited I didn't want to watch it in less than an ideal environment.
two things that are amazing. One of the greatest Disney quotes of all time that has a great card for it. You will know it when you see it. And
I wonder if I may have been one of the ones that I photographed. I took a screenshot of.
I got one too. And I've just been waiting for the moment that I could use it in a conversation. We've probably just been waiting for one of us to do something. It's just Walt Disney saying no. It's just like his face and just slowly comes up no. And so, but
Fun
it's a
fact. After this call or tomorrow, I have to have a video call. I have to have a conversation. I have a call with. I backed a film that one of the editors was a producer on.
So that, and then Walt Disney holding a gun on the Jungle Cruise, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I actually just want that high resed up, just a massive photo of that in my office forevermore. But I will see you boys down the road.
Later.
Awesome. Well, here, we'll keep things the way they are for just a second, and then I'll set up a shot with the two of us.
The close-up shot. This is me.
Although you know what? I'm okay with this too.
Welcome to Oz.
Okay, let me zoom you in, and then I'll just pan you over. There we go. And sure, we'll go with this for now. We'll make it right. For now, we'll have as big a heads as we often do. Oh yeah, you know what? I can fix that. So AI. Okay, so I got a question for you, Andrew. You and I, during this AI revolution, we have an emerging market, and we have been of the opinion, I think we're on the same page, that now is a time to be peak, nimble, and flexible, because everybody knows that AI is going to be big, like the internet was. Nobody knows which will be the killer app or the way to win on the internet / AI, that kind of similar parallels. So I have been saying yes to an awful lot of subscriptions for AI, and I just got a notification that at some point in a frenzy, one of the things that I subscribed to, like the credit card was maxed out, and so it says this thing, I think it was Suno, was declined, and I'm like, Suno? Man, I've been on Udio for a while, and so I realized that I'm experiencing AI subscription fatigue, and I think I'm going to cull everything, and similar to what I advise people to do when it comes to cutting the cord, cancel everything, and then the moment I want something, resume it, with the one exception of OpenAI ChatGPT, because I'm still using that one every single day. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think that, I'm all for, sometimes I have subscriptions to stuff and I let them keep going because I kind of like the company. I want to keep it going, but, I don't know if they would return the thing. And I like Udio, but I have not used Udio forever. And I'm like, oh, do I, do I need to keep throwing there? And I probably have some subscriptions thrown around there. I think you just play with stuff. Like I have, I liked Bolt.new for creating apps, but it won't work on my phone. And then I discovered Lovable.dev, which works on my phone. And then I'm like, oh, well, maybe they should have my business right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to unsubscribe to Bolt.new. That was a delightful 2 days of me believing I wanted to be a programmer, and I may go back to it. So here's the funny part: is we talked about the fact that no matter for years we've had all these smart home systems that we've all waited with bated breath to find out whether or not this one would play along with that one or what have you, and so but now we have this situation where you can write, anybody can be a programmer now and write scripts to control stuff. So most of what I'm doing with the Stream Deck and the vMix and setting up this new studio is all within one ecosystem. But then I bump into, for example, the lights all like Bluetooth, and there's not an easy thing to set up. except for like I would have to write a custom script, and that would have been the end of the discussion a year ago, certainly 2 years ago. But now it's not. Now it's like, well, I guess I'll just learn to program now and have an AI walk me through that as well.
Yeah, I had a problem with a just transferring like a lot of stuff. If you, I was building an app to like generate video slides, and I had a problem with converting. Once you do like WebM or something like that, which WebM works fine in Chrome, and that's the only place WebM works on a Mac. And I have a conversion tool, and I'm like, okay, I can go into the conversion tool and all that. I'm like, oh, ChatGPT lets me write Apple scripts now, which are kind of like power, stuff that you can do, like Windows has their version. I said, oh, let me see if I can open up Automator and write a script, and it took me 6 minutes. And then I had a working thing and a menu selection that I can just click on a file and say convert. It's done. It opens up the app in the background, does that. Now it's ChatGPT just made it super easy to do that.
What's been the latest, or give me a sampling, because nobody's farther on the bleeding edge of this stuff than you are. Give me a sample of what's on your radar these days.
Broadly speaking, reasoning models, O1, O3, those are useful because we're finding out there's a lot of areas where AI is kind of sometimes good, but isn't always super reliable. And the reasoning models are really, really useful for that. And, reasoning models, basically, we talked about how those work before, but, they can kind of go back and say, oh, let me try this again. The talk, of course, right now, and if you listen to us, we talked about this over a year ago as agents, and now people are like agents, and we're like, yes, if you listen to the show, you'd know about it. The next thing from there is going to be networks, and what we mean by that is we laid out a lot of really cool infrastructure with crypto, with a lot of BS and dumb things and blockchain stuff. But man, if I want to have a tool that's able to like pay 3 cents or a fraction of a cent to go use a thing or whatever and just kind of run in the background, a lot of that infrastructure is going to be useful now. And you're going to start thinking about, like, if you said, Brian, you were like, oh, I have to, I need to get X, or I want to get this video edited or something like that. And it might be, an agent system might be able to do it, or you might have an agent that talks to another agent that's really good at video editing and negotiates a price because some of them are, the same, whatever. And like, I don't know how far we get there this year, but that'll be a thing. Reasoning systems, agents, putting the stuff everywhere, AI-powered browsers. There's a number of companies trying to work on just a browser. Anything that you can do in a browser, have an AI take over and do.
I have noticed something interesting with cutting-edge products. Like I'm buying, again, a lot of this studio equipment, and sometimes I don't know whether or not it's supposed to do that out of the box, whatever that is. And when I search for the product name and look for like just sort of impressions people have, it used to be back in the day, it would take me to a bunch of public forums, and Google would be helpful for that. Nowadays, over the last 5 years, it's increasingly just taken me to Reddit threads. But now I'm not even seeing a lot on Reddit threads. And I, obviously people are buying these products and obviously they're having an experience, but all of a sudden those experiences and those questions what I want is confirmation to know whether or not my experience is common to them as well. But now all of that is opaque because people are asking their personal agent AIs, and that personal agent is not in the business of sharing that with me. So, I'm wondering what the downstream effects of that will look like when it becomes. It used to be that you would just shout into the void of the internet and another person shouting for the same thing would find you. And that's less and less now. I wonder if there'll be sort of a synthetic, anonymized version of Reddit where, like, maybe OpenAI calls it OpenAI's Town Square. And basically the idea is nothing could ever be traced back to the individual person, but instead an avatar representing 1,000 people asking similar questions is in the town square. So like, I want to talk to the avatar of somebody who also bought this and ask and then have it speak trained on all of those questions that everybody's asking their AI agent.
I mean, that certainly we are going to be paying a lot of attention to where information gets siloed and how we network and make it available. And it certainly might be a thing where you let your AI build up stuff, information. Like, remember one of these kind of far science fiction novels, I forget what it was called, but basically involved the civilizations where we never broke speed of light, right? And we'd have these kind of armadas that we had longevity though, and people would travel around the galaxy.
Was it the Forever War?
No, not that. Not the ripoff that he claimed he didn't know there was such a book called Forever War. It was a very good writer, but that was a long story short. Scalzi wrote a thing with the same premise. Like, I didn't know the Forever was like, how are you in sci-fi? You didn't know Forever. Well, I believe you. I'm just amazed.
Okay.
That's possible.
Well, welcome to Brian Walks It Back.
Yeah. So no, this was like kind of a post-singularity kind of thing. And what it would be is like armadas would come into other contacts with other cultures and trade, and they would trade information, and they would trade back and forth, and you would go to the next one and you'd trade information, and petabytes of information about art, movies, whatever. And that was the thing, was that just like this idea that it's just this consistent flow of information going around the galaxy, and there was a value there. And I was saying that here is that you might say, hey, I trust my AI. Every product, everything I've used, whatever. Yeah, create it. Maybe you just create a public good database. But maybe I'm like, no, I'll trade this. And so somebody could say like, hey, I want to know, I want to talk to 100 people, 100 AIs that work for people that have the new Mavox, video generation sequence, because I have questions. And behind the scenes, it does a negotiation and says, yeah, for 0.3 cents, I will share what I know. And all of a sudden it comes back with an answer. And you could say, I think there could be networks like that. I think we could create. And this goes back to, by the way, one of the original protocols for the internet was the idea that we went to the sort of default, I get to access your server and not I default have to pay you for access to this. But there was the idea that maybe every exchange on the internet should be a financial transaction. Or a lot of people are like, no, it shouldn't be. It's like, well, it is at some point a financial transaction. That we did not eliminate the need for money or computer energy. We just shoved it in other places. And so every time you get an image on your computer, it's coming from an Amazon S3 bucket, somebody's paying a price, whatever, and it's fractions of cents, so much people monitor it. But there is this idea of like, oh, well, if it's more efficient, because in the long run, the kind of the perverse thing is that like you may be paying way more for stuff now than you realize, because people are making guesses about what things are going to cost or whatever, and sometimes there's inefficiencies.
Yeah, so ultimately, all of those misses that subsidize the hits, they all get paid for in that final retail price. And so if we can have, eliminate, 90% of the misses, all of a sudden you could pay half the retail cost for all of this stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes too, you might find out that, there's terabytes of somebody's got reserve bandwidth that can't be used because they're afraid they might need it. Then it's a wasted resource. So there's a lot of efficiency there. I would say the other thing to think about though is, the makers of the device might throw it at an AI and say, hey, pretend you're 1,000 users using this and tell me what's going to happen. That would be, I think that's the likely scenarios. We're going to find out that like you build an app and you give it access to a bunch of agents, and the agents go through there and do it. And maybe somebody third party says, we'll do this. And like, because that's one of the things I thought about, like you could probably write your help docs by letting another AI system try to use the system, not build it from my code outwards, but like literally build it from the outside in of like, oh, here, whatever.
Well, and think about what a difference. So you and I both came from the world of magic, and before, obviously the internet changed a lot, including the discussion about how magic should handle information. And of course, magicians, to varying sliding degrees, rely on information inefficiencies in order to, as they put it, preserve wonder, as others might put it, preserve their cartel. But then, in general, you would consume information and magic of here's the effect, this is the secret, the end. And then along with that, in order to negotiate teaching magic in a quasi-public environment, you still have to click on it. With Scam School, originally it was just to accommodate 2 sponsor breaks, but I added a C block. So it was like perform the trick, make it look really good, teach how the trick is done. And then the C block was allow somebody picked out of the wild, a random person at the bar, and if they could learn the trick, number one, along the way, they're going to make the type of mistakes they'll make will be exactly the type of mistakes the people at home are likely to make. And therefore, it'll be valuable experience to watch them work their way through it and get it down. And that provided 2 things. Number one, it provided proof that this was teaching and not exposure. Number 2, it provided valuable information of, hey, a lot of people are going to make this mistake and so on. And what you're describing with 1,000 newbies doing it is like an efficient at-scale version of the same things. And so along with that, you can smell those precursors to a mistake coming, where it's like, what are the moves people make that indicates that they're likely on a track where they're going to encounter the real problem? And what nudges to the UI can be made to guide them to the intended effect?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that you can just like we said, yeah, it's exactly like the robotics thing. It's like literally, let me simulate this, because so many problems you don't find out until much later on that would have been easily discoverable had you been looking at it from a different point of view.
Yeah.
All right, picks.
Yeah, you know what? I just did an hour-plus conversation on this one with Andrew Heaton on his Alienating the Audience podcast. It'll go out next week. And originally, he was asking if I wanted to talk about Fallout. And so he was in town. I sat down and I rewatched, for the 4th time, Fallout Season 1, Episode 1. And we were discussing kind of the morality of Fallout and how it's like you have all of these laboratories, without getting into too many spoilers, you have laboratories for all these moral conundrums. That's what the game was built on, and what happens when you hit the reset button on humanity. But we made all these plans to talk about Fallout and ended up not at all talking about Fallout because of one moment. We get to the part where we're meeting Maximus from the Brotherhood of Steel, and Andrew casually asks, so I guess what these guys' thing is, like, I guess they're just obsessed with pre-war artifacts? Why? And I was like, that's just straight out of A Canticle for Leibowitz. And he said, what? And I was like, you haven't read A Canticle for Leibowitz? And he's like, no. And I was like, dude, you got a 18-hour drive ahead of you. Do that audiobook, and that'll be what we talk about. And so I went back and I listened to the audiobook, most of the audiobook for A Canticle of Leibowitz. I also listened to the last bits in the NPR radio play based on A Canticle for Leibowitz. And that's my pick, A Canticle for Leibowitz. It was patient zero of the apocalypse genre. It was, I think, I don't know... I know that Fallout traces, is a spiritual successor to Wasteland. Wasteland drew upon the imagery of Stephen King's The Wasteland, and of course, A Boy and His Dog, and Mad Max, and all of them owe a deep, deep debt to A Canticle for Leibowitz. Once you go all the way back to that, I don't know how much farther back it goes, because A Canticle for Leibowitz was written as a series of science fiction short stories in Sci-Fi magazine, and they eventually got made into this novel. It spans, 1,000+ years, and it's great. And in fact, I think that's all I want to say. There are 3 main characters. There's the world, there's the Catholic Church, and there's entropy. It's a battle of those 3 things.
Yeah, I read it back in high school, and it's one of those things like I need to go back and listen to it again, because there's this weird recommendation blind spots when you ask for recs on stuff, and algorithms I think have a big problem with this. because you'll go like, I look for something like this, and then you go through and you get the same sort of 20 or 30 recs over and over again. And then you come across something else like, why did it not, if you look for like vampire movies, on Netflix or Amazon will recommend stuff that's like everywhere, you might never see Shadow of the Vampire. You might never see like with the John Landis
Shadow of the
Mob
Empire.
Vampire.
That was the book. Was it Timothy Zahn? No, it was somebody else.
Shadow of the Vampire.
Shadow of Vampire. Sorry, I think you said Shadow of the Empire.
No,
which was
Vampire.
one of the Star Wars books that. Yeah,
which was a great book by the way. But no, this was a one about a what if Mac, when they shot the original Nosferatu, what if Max Shrek was actually like a vampire? So fun premise, whatever. There's a lot of there's a lot of these. Oh, it's a vampire movie. But if I go do a list of name me 20 vampire movies, it may never come up. And it goes for the more popular. Like we have this saying, like Canonical Believable. It's like I've been looking at for like more classic sci-fi stories to revisit, and I read this years ago. Like, yeah, I'm going to add this to my list because I need to go back and read it again because I don't think I've read this thing in 25 years.
Yeah.
If you want a cool series, I don't know if you've ever read it, but if you want some other early stage, do you know the genre Dying Earth?
No, I don't. Let's pretend I don't.
Dying Earth genre, and one of the more prominent writers that was Gene Wolfe. The Dying Earth genre is basically the idea that you take it like, what about the Earth 100,000 years, a million years in the future? What happens if you go to the point at which, hey, the sun's starting to change a bit, whatever, but there's still people? Like, what is the deep future history like for that? And because it's a very crazy thing to think about. We're good at, we can imagine a few hundred years because we go back, looking back, a few hundred years. Like maybe we do have trouble when we start to say like Star Trek Discovery started to do like the year 3000 and stuff. And I'm like, that's just, I'm sorry. Like there's like I think they may be doing a new series like that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like that's a really hard thing to think about, especially now when we don't even have a good idea what the year 2100 is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you try to do that, but I think what some of these places is like, well, we'll just imagine civilization collapses and comes up again, because that's how you do Dune. That's how you do Foundation, is you basically say, we reset everything, and then we arrest everything at some time period that sort of feels familiar to you. But to really think of because we try to think of what would it be like 10,000 years now of technological progress? I can't wrap my head around it. So Dying Earth is the idea of you go 100,000 years in the future, whatever, and it's just like medieval, but there's mutants and monsters and just all sorts of stuff. And you don't even have, it's not even like you have sort of Shannara or whatever. You have the remnants of our. So we're everything we have is dust. There's just no evidence of our time period, because there's been epic periods of humanity's history going forward. So anyhow, Shadow of the Torture is one of the books Gene Wolfe wrote. The Book of the New Sun is the series.
Cool. All right. Gene Wolfe, you said?
Yeah, Gene Wolfe. So my pick is two picks. I saw Wicked last night. If you like musicals, you're gonna love Wicked.
Hey Andrew, do you like musicals?
I am. For me, I thought production design is fantastic. Acting's cast, they're great. The music was great. Everything's great. Everything's like that. But for me, it's I'm not going to go to a tractor pull and say it was too noisy. So I'm not going to go into this and go I'm 30 minutes into it.
It's a really good phrase. I really like that.
It's a musical. It's a musical. I am sure it's probably one of the better ones. What I really want to rave about, and I rave in the sense that don't go in there and be like, oh my God, it's blowing me away. Thanks, Andrew. I'm no, just solid movie. I dug the hell out of it. I loved it. Was Nosferatu.
Yeah, it's just a classic retelling of the classic story, or? Yeah,
so the original Nosferatu in 1922 was an example of, German expressionism based, sort of literally taking sort of a painting style and using that how you would do certain creating nightmares, sort of set design, etc., and whatever. It was basically they did not have the rights to Bram Stoker's Dracula. So they took Bram Stoker's Dracula, got rid of a couple plot lines, changed a couple things, but it's effectively the story of the going to sell real estate to the Count. But it's Count Orlok and it takes place in Germany. And he's not named Harker, his name's another close name. So but it was artistically, it was, very high water mark. Bram Stoker's widow sued the producers of the original Nosferatu. All the copies were supposed to have been destroyed, but they weren't, which is why we have it today. And now the copyright's expired. We can see that. So Robert Eggers, he did Witch. He did Lighthouse, Witch I thought Witch was great. He did this. I love it because he has a strong idea as a director. He is making, a really good director's making choices and they're making their own choices. And that's what I liked about it. And there's camera movements and stuff in here that is really, really nice. The way he shot it. He embraced some of the aesthetics of the early one, but he wasn't trying to make an impressionistic film, which I liked. It's atmospheric, it's moody. I really dug the hell out of Nosferatu.
Right on. Well, yeah, and that's in theaters or streaming or
In theaters now.
awesome. I'll check it out.
And it is funny too that like you think about like the 1922 version, got sued almost out of oblivion, and 100 years later, we're watching a $50 million
Reboot or a reimagining of specifically because finally the copyright has expired.
Well, because it was all good. I mean, you could do Dracula. Dracula's out of copyright now, and so you could easily do Dracula if you want. But Eggers like, no, I want to do Nosferatu, which I thought was a great choice. It's like Billy Skarsgård, by the way, plays the Count Orlok. Great, just great.
Cool.
Cool. It's been weird.
Nailed it. You want to take a break and do after things?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, here. If anybody is new, this is where we take a break, which is code for Andrew and I go pee. And then we'll come back with the After Things podcast, where we talk about what it's like to be an independent creator. Bow. Yo. All right, you ready?
Yo.
All right. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Brian, I'm going to give a pro tip here.
Huh?
I'm going to give a pro tip. A tip for the professionals
Okay.
out there, or a tip from the professional. You decide. I've managed to work my way into, artificial intelligence, worked worked at OpenAI. I work with other companies, and have been very, very fortunate. And I'm gonna share with you my secret. By secret, I mean kind of a thing everybody knows, but I'm gonna reinforce the fact of how useful this is. Um, I'm in the middle of working on O1 using the OpenAI's O1 model, which is a reasoning model. And it's very capable. And one of the ways that I'm learning how to use this,
Tell me.
I'm writing my own docs for it.
When you say writing your own documentation,
I'm literally writing documentation explaining how to use it.
and you're writing it for yourself. You know what? That's so remarkable because just earlier today, I was thinking about one of the most intellectually productive times of my entire life was when I taught magic at a magic camp. And every single night I would think, holy crap, I have to come up with a brand new routine and I have to teach it tomorrow. So I would go through, whether it was one of the L&L library of VHS tapes. And I'm like, no, not that one is too close to what we already did. This other one. And I would barely learn it the night before and then teach it to these kids the next day. And to this day, there are routines that I still know backwards and forwards from that time. I would imagine it's the exact same thing we're talking about here.
Yeah, 100%. So it's certainly it's a thing that's been talked about before, and people, oh, that's the Feynman technique or whatever, which he was one of the people kind of popularized. If you learn how to teach a thing, it's really the way to learn it, because there's a phenomenon that I kind of call like opening night, thing, which is sort of related to it, which is if you want to know it's important, announce you're releasing tomorrow. If you're working on practicing a magic act, imagine all of a sudden tomorrow to invite all your friends over to go see what you're working on tomorrow. And all of a sudden you're going to prioritize. If you're building an app, tell your friends you're releasing tomorrow. And like what all of a sudden becomes super critical, because there's a lot of these would be kind of nice to haves that's hard to sort of rate the importance to other things, because when you think you have infinite time, you deal out your time proportionally. When all of a sudden time gets reduced to 24 hours, you're like, oh, this. And like, it's like an MVP and stuff. And I try to tell people like this, like, what's the thing we could launch in 3 days? Like, oh, it's terrible. I'm like, no, but that's how we know it's important. This is somewhat related in a sense if it's like, when I sit down to have to explain it, it forces me to understand the parts that I yada yada'd over. And all of a sudden I realize, oh, this is critical, but it's not as hard as I thought it was. I just put that off till later. I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I can just ignore that. So anyhow, writing my own docs for stuff is one of the ways that I do stuff.
We've made jokes on this program about my penchant for metaphor, but I'm realizing now part of the reason that I lean that way is because so much of my online presence, my job has been to teach, and you need to think in a way, how can I cause somebody else to see it the way I see it or whatever? And I'd imagine if you're writing documentation, you're thinking of, as Stephen King thinks of it, constant reader as an actual person he writes letters to. How can I explain to constant reader what I'm trying to do here? And it probably triggers some different neural pathways that really anchor stuff in your mind.
Yeah, you start to go, you say, for instance, like, talking about like the O1 reasoning models, is that there are extremely, extremely useful things to be done there. And I can go on a podcast, say, oh, they're good for this. But if I have to sit down and all of a sudden write docs and give you, here's 5 examples you can do with it right now to see the difference. Now I'm going to spend several hours thinking about 5 examples. And in doing that, I go all of a sudden, oh, wow, this is a really cool use for this. This makes a lot of sense. And it sometimes forces you to think about the hazy part, and it points out like, oh, this is a little bit hazy. I could probably make this clearer.
Yeah. I don't want to jump straight to pick, so I don't know if this will be my pick or not, or maybe it will. But there's a book that I'm reading, and I think last week we talked about I was reading David Eagleman's book, Livewired, and that at some point there was something that led me to the Annie M. Paul book, The Extended Mind. The subtitle is Thinking Outside the Brain. Have you heard of this?
I don't think so.
It every so often ventures into real hippie territory where it's like, hey man, it's not just about what you say or in your brain or whatever, but it's about the emerging body of research that indicates that kinesthetics matter towards anchoring memories. And one of the examples they gave that was the most concrete was you take a couple of actors who, let's say 10, 15 years ago, were in a play, and in isolation, you're like, please remember all the lines from the play and write them down. And there they are alone with their brain, in theory, this computer, meat computer trapped inside their head, and they're putting all of their calories, not wasting a single one anywhere else except for on thinking, and they do whatever percentage of getting the lines. Then instead, hand them all of the props, dress the set, dress the stage exactly like the play they did those years ago, get the other actors in there, and then say, nail every single line, and then they just do the play. They're able to access memories in a superior way, and it makes the case. When this first started to be proposed, now at this point I'll get the numbers wrong, but I think it was late 70s, early 80s or whatever, literally laughed at in the journals. They're all like, well, this is the dumbest crap ever. Why on earth would walking or exercising or doing something make you better at reading x-rays? And yet the research, if you look at benchmarks for performance, seems to indicate that's the case. And that's part of the reason, nothing inspires creativity like a deadline. That's part of the reason that I'm live streaming every single day as I'm learning all of these, is that pressure, that learning under pressure, and that physically doing, and being like, the moment I walk into this room, all of my senses are engaged and activating the patterns that those neural pathways getting deepened.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Yeah, I have to check that, because it's one of the things too. Sometimes you find a thing in one area, people go, that's bull BS. In another area, people go, well, yeah, that's been obvious. I remember there was some of the stuff when there was like the neuroscientists discovered magic and stuff, and I remember reading a research paper where like, oh, we discovered this certain phenomenon. I'm like, Aristotle described this. This is nothing new here, and I can show you another research where they described it. And I even see that in AI too. Like, I'll literally say, we have a new technique. I'm like, there's these people in a somewhat adjacent field that discovered this thing and promoted it, but never made it to your way. And so yeah,
one of them, what we call prompt engineering, people, there are certain things that you could tell, like for example, something innocuous that I keep doing is trying to trick advanced voice mode into doing impressions, right? The way I've gotten it to do a passable Homer Simpson is not with cold logic of not explaining why it should subvert its own programming, but it's straight up the technique of stage hypnotists. It's starting with something we all agree on, and then just nudging farther and farther and farther to where the bigger leap would be to not continue to do this Homer Simpson impression that you're doing now.
Yeah, there's a lot of methods that we find out that have been in plain sight, but people didn't realize that they applied to it or somewhere else. I went through this with, like, I was doing step-by-step reasoning in early 2020 to GPT-3, and then all of a sudden a paper comes out called Chain of Thought, and I'm like, man, this is a method I was teaching. I didn't realize that this was, and to my fault, like, I didn't understand to follow through on that, how valuable that was. But that was, to me, that for me came from, I used to write magic tutorials, and I have to teach things step by step. And if I wanted an AI to get to do a thing, I said, you've got to understand this first step. Now I need to know, the second step. And sometimes I got to feed that prompt back into you, so you're not wasting that. And it's like, yeah, you find a lot of these things are, if you look around, you see the stuff. Yeah, the kinesiology, the other memory triggers, things like, because I've got a shelf full of memory books and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, it's well documented in the memory space of like how these triggers help and whatnot, and culturally speaking, why certain things work the way they do. Like there's the Aboriginal Australians would create these physical boards and stuff where things that have memory boards on it, like called a Lucasa, I think it was, and like literally a shell or things like this, because if I touch the thing or whatever, it triggers that. It's like 40,000-year-old technique there that was documented and other people use it. But yeah, then all of a sudden, there is that weird, it's just got to be in the head. Like, no, that sounds crazy. I remember in the 90s, Neil Stephenson wrote a book I liked. I disagreed with it, but I liked. It was called, at the beginning, was The Command Line. And he was very upset with graphical user interfaces and things like this, because in his opinion, it abstracted you away from the compute. The Jeff Raskin, who did the original Macintosh project where Steve Jobs did, if you go look at his original project, it was like, wasn't the graphical user interface at all. It was a wide open text doc or whatever that networked, whatever. And it was sort of like a second brain. There was a lot of interesting thinking there, but there's a lot of people that hated UIs. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to take the existing world and map it into my world. So yeah, my email inbox looks like an email. Like now it looks like an airplane, because we're so used to like we know an airplane's a folded piece of paper. We can do that, but it's an envelope. It's a letter. And there are people who've been using email and doing electronics who have never, bought a stamp in their life. But it's not dumb that we use that, because using that is how we mapped it onto everything else.
Yeah, and I used to be pedantic when I was younger about this stuff. I would have agreed with the idea that adding layers of abstraction only hindered being as smart as you can with the technology. But over the years, I've become increasingly swayed by, for example, Will Storr's book, The Status Game, talks about humans as status-seeking engines, and his book, The Science of Storytelling, talks about how humans are narrative. We think in terms of narratives constantly. We're revising our own narrative based on what we see. And the more neuroscience I read about, like even what we perceive as sight is a photoshopped abstraction. Like we're not able to, our brain sits inside a dark vat and makes up a story based on the data stream coming in from our optic nerve. That doesn't mean we're seeing any lights or colors. And, we see floaters in our vision. And if we just wait a few seconds, the floaters get photoshopped out. You can watch it in real time. It's fascinating. And knowing that everything is an abstraction, it's like, what's this real compute that you want to interface with in the command line? I don't believe it, any more than I believe. Yeah, it's like that moment in the Matrix, or it's like, you think that's air you're breathing?
So let me show you a couple things. Like,
there you go.
The
You got it.
camera icon.
Yep.
When was the last time somebody picked up a camera that looked like that?
And even then, it's like, well, I don't know. Now we're just spinning down the rabbit hole on there, but things mean things, and then we build things that mean things on the backs of those things.
We use a Phoenician letter system because we use the thing for an ox for an A or whatever. Like, yeah, but it's not bad to use these things. Everything comes from somewhere. I'll show you. This is one. Like, this is like ask anybody under 20 why the YouTube logo is a rounded rectangle.
Oh yeah. Well, oh my God, I didn't even think about the rounded rectangle. I was thinking about just the triangle as a play button. Goes back to cassettes.
Yeah, but the rounded part,
is the tube. Hey, ask people what the tube in YouTube means.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's these artifacts. Like my argument back to you saying is like the graphical user interface. Like, I get the people that thought like if I use the command line, then I'm really at the raw computer. But it's like, press a button, works. Press another button, works. Press a button, works. I'm done. Like, and there's also you get into too is that I think that a lot of times they overlooked is, how would a YouTube interface work in that way? I would get a list of titles, not images. How would I short image track? Well, they're okay. Then we'd have a list of images.
Well, and that's been one of the fascinating things. Part of the reason I'm moving so fast on this studio stuff is because, at least to my mind, YouTube won the game, and it's as close to all things being equal. It's best if anybody wants to make it on YouTube to just assume that YouTube is a benefactor or whatever. It's telepathic, and all it wants to do is be your agent and link you to people who want to know the thing that you have. Like even now, we're on a channel on the YouTube side of things that a lot of people know of as the place where hands get injured and stuff blows up. But it knows it's listening to us and it will synthesize it. And out there, we spent enough time talking about AI that it's going to serve this up to somebody who wants to hear our thoughts about AI. And because we are farther along in our discovery of AI, they're getting a peek into the future of things that they're learning things for the first time. I don't know. It's just utterly remarkable, the layers of abstraction upon abstraction as individual humans kind of become sentient neurons in I don't know, the planet of thinking people.
Planet of thinking people.
Let me know when you find one,
Finally
guy.
manicured paper cut fingers off me, you dirty intellectual. Yeah. So back to my advice: write docs for stuff, explain a thing. When you go through the effort explaining to it, you open up pathways in your brain you didn't think about. You answer questions, you understand things more, and you sometimes. I have a lot of aha mom. I look at like I'm a reasonably quick study. It's done well, and people think of me of this, but I'm also a person that really benefits by sitting down to kind of really work my way through it, because sometimes I get by on just, luck, and then realize, oh, I had an intuition about this and they couldn't explain it, which got me here. But man, now that I understand it, I can do a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Teach someone, even if it's yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I wrote the most of the original docs for prompt engineering, at OpenAI. And that was, I'm sat down like, hey, could you help us explain to people how it does? Like, sure, try this. I had the whole format of like the different kinds of structures. These are these kinds of stuff. And a lot of that still 5 years later is still there. And I see it at other AI labs like, oh, you put this thing here because I put that there because I was trying to learn this thing, had to break it down to figure out like, how do I qualify these tasks? Not because I knew, I'm like, oh, I need to understand this and be able to break it down on my own head.
It is funny. It makes me think of, on the one level, it seems like a cosmic coincidence that a 21st century computer mouse happens to be roughly the same size and shape as a Stone Age hand axe, until you think, yeah, what size is a human hand? What comfortably fits in a human hand? Oh, shocker. They're roughly the same size.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, I have my hand axe somewhere here. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's exactly. It's like, well, yeah, hands haven't changed too much. An interesting thing, I brought this up to somebody else, was that Neanderthal culture didn't change that much over time. And that's the way to look at for stagnation. If your tools aren't changing, you're not evolving. And you're leaving yourself wide open, which is one of the reasons. Sorry, I've just been obsessed now trying to find my hand axe here.
It does read like you're being harangued by an invisible bug.
Hey, Brian, you can't rule that out either. Right? I could be, going through an episode and just trying to, pass it off with like, oh yes, I have one of those here.
You're like, what's her name at the Emmys? Lydia from Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't see that. Yeah, anyhow, trust me, I have one. It's one of my favorite things. But yeah, I like to hold that up and think about that and go like, this was the iPhone for about 100,000 years.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a point I brought up to somebody the other day, was if we had a time machine and we could go back throughout any point in human history, and let's say it took us to random points in human history, we would have a really hard time knowing what year it was. Like I could go back in time, visit somebody's ancestor 10,000 years prior, but not know if I went 10,000 years back or 10,000 years ahead.
Oh, that's
because
interesting.
Culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, man, the informational entropy is just, I don't know. If I think about it with the poetical parts of my brain, I get kind of like, it's deeply depressing to just the mystery of what happened more than, I don't know, 10,000 years ago. And to know that there's so much that's just a black box and will forever be. And that even worse, everything we're doing will be in a black box to some entity 100,000 years from now. It's
Yeah, as much as we can think about the idea that we might have, life extension, uploading and stuff like that. Um, I don't know how much I'm going to matter a million years from now.
yeah, yeah. Uh, well, on that cheery note, my pick is whatever that book I just said. The title is The Extended Mind, but the conceit is Thinking Outside the Brain. So far, I'm really digging it. It gets a little bit
Very
hippy
cool.
dippy.
Cool. My pick is take something that you find useful that somebody else might find useful and just write some docs. And yes, I am, listen, I am the guy that wrote a lot of the GPT-4 materials by pasting all the conversations I had with GPT-4 into GPT-4 and say, write this. And I was complimented at work for doing such a clever thing, doing this. But I'm also a big believer, put in the sweat to learn it yourself. And man, it's worth it.
I did recently use ChatGPT to write a proposal for a thing, and at first I didn't even get out of bed to write the proposal, and I felt like a fraud. And when I emailed it, I read it. I'm like, man, that's a good proposal. That ChatGPT really made up a bunch of fancy sounding stuff. And then I went back and I looked at my prompt, and when I read my prompt aloud, I'm like, no. I did all the heavy lifting on. These are my words. It just formatted them all pretty in a civilized business kind of way.
That's the way to do it. It's really like, to me, it's great for me. The best thing I can do is to have it take my 1,000 words and turn out 100 words.
Yeah.
And people, instead of using to turn 100 words into 10 words into 1,000 words, like, do it the other way. Like, that's really, to me, is the help me refine all my thoughts, because otherwise I could just give people the prompt, like there I can see these, like, generate a slideshow from one prompt or one this. Like, why not just give me the prompt? I have ChatGPT, I have that. I'll leave a very interesting inflection point is I've been working on a thing like where I need to use do Google image search, and so you can do a Google custom search, and the cost per queries is $5 per 1,000 queries. Right? If you pay they use an API access, so you're paying $5 per 1,000 queries. And so I was trying to find images if I wanted to get like Bill Gates or whatever to make a slideshow. The cost to use Flux Schnell, okay, which is the really, really fast image generator, is like $5 will get me like 3,000 images.
Wow. And so is it a case where it's just refined and efficient, or?
It's cheaper to have an AI generate something for me than to ask Google to find it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also more trustworthy and not going to get you into trouble with I've got Content ID on the brain lately, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be issues where it may not give me the people or stuff like that, but a lot of that I thought was just, man, we're in a space where generative space is actually, it's cheaper than it is to do.
Oh, I was working on a clever idea. So this will be my last tip for anyone. We're at a place where if I wanted to do a little think piece, a little YouTube video essay, what I need is I need a picture of a photocopier. I need a picture of a line. I need a picture of a guy trying to work his way into the front of the line by using a number of ABCDE tested things. And the most obvious solution is to use AI to generate all these, but narratively, we're in a place where the tools are evolving and AI has a certain look to it where somebody might be like, oh, is that AI? Is that not AI? And then they're thinking about the morality of AI, none of which is where I want their head at if I'm trying to tell a story. I want them listening to my words, and the pictures are there just to explain faster what I'm trying to explain. And so a little hack that I came up with is I bought one of those Fujifilm instant printers that actually uses real Polaroid film, Polaroid style print. And ChatGPT or DALL-E kept making cartoons. I had to go to Grok to actually create something photorealistic. But then when you print it out on there, because you're holding a photograph, that tactilely has always been associated with this is a real place that happened. It's so awesomely surreal that I want to put together a magic trick because you could have a whole deck of photographs and nobody is asking themselves if this Polaroid was actually AI generated. And so I'm trying to figure out what that'll look like. But anyway, that's a fun tip that I figured out.
Yeah, and you can do some really cool optical illusion stuff in there too. And there's some very cool. We'll talk.
Yeah.
Talk.
Well, cool.
Cool. Gentlemen, Brian, audience, it's been after.
Nailed it. Clean.
Brian, I'm going to video call you in a second.
Okay. All right. Well, then here, I'm going to wrap up all these streams, guys. I'll be back later on today. But thank you so much to everybody who joined us.
Yeah, FaceTime me when you're done with that question for you.
Okie dokie. All right. I'll see you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye.